Let me juice our numbers real quick. I can look at it on my YouTube.
What a great start to this one. Watch us multitask, guys. We're good at this.
Yeah.
Check it out. Learn from us.
If you're just joining, we're definitely going to talk about Adam's tag hat.
What? Yeah. Also, what are you doing with this camera angle?
What camera angle?
When are you going to be centered in the frame?
Look, you ever
People are dying to know.
You don't know good cinematography, obviously, watching 65 one too many times, but
you had a problem with everything in that movie?
I'm convinced that you love 65 with how much you talk about it.
What's up, Jesse?
Love to hate. Hey, Jesse's here.
Do we want the guy with the tag on his hat to bring in the episode?
Guy with the tag on his hat. Guy with the $250 suit here. Arrested Development with Job.
Yeah, Adam's not off a bean today or whatever was happening last episode.
Took one of those edibles.
Ambien, I thought.
Man, took something.
Or forget me not. Speaking of Arrested Development.
There we go.
All right, Adam, lead us in.
Welcome in to Clips and Dip, episode 5 of season 2. I believe I got that right off top. Like my new hat with the tags on because that's how the kids wear it these days. I'm Adam Oslin. We got Will Updike and Chuck Mockler here. The triumphant, the tripod, we're back and we're live. So thanks to you guys who are watching us right now on YouTube Live. We appreciate it. That's at Clippers Podcast on YouTube. At Clippers Pod on Twitter is where you can find a link to this.
Did you practice that?
Retweet this. Yeah, I actually, hold on. Let me find that script I got. Oh, no, it's just this.
Glad everybody's back together. This is, this is probably the second best trio of all time.
Just in all of trios?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, that's fair.
First best is obviously a trio. Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris.
Of course.
So you guys are here because it's live today. And that means you can actually send us questions and we'll answer them directly on this YouTube stream.
And Adam will be nicer than he is on the radio. Right?
Usually I'm meaner on here. I'm a little more ornery and angry and prone to lash out. But we'll take all your questions. We can see them right now. Jesse says, "What's up, fellas?" That's kind of a question. What's up, Jesse? Right back at you.
Off to a good start with the niceness.
Man, this is a wonderful example of Adam not reading the breakdown because we have a bunch of questions from Twitter that we can get into.
I got the breakdown too. I'm just making sure we get the hot take questions in here also. So later on, coming up in the show, we'll talk about a clip that we posted at Clippers Pod on our Twitter. And it was Coach Lou talking about the regular season and a discussion he had with the superstars. We'll get into all of that. In the second segment, we did put a poll out there, too, talking about James Harden at Clippers Pod. But yes, Chuck, do you want to start things off with this wild mailbag madness, as we like to call it?
Yes. Thank you to everyone who sent questions in. Slow news week is all I'm going to say about the amount of questions we got, which I think makes sense. There's not a whole lot.
Slow news week. Fucking aliens, man.
No one cares about that. Life is too hard for us to care about the aliens. Militant Mind 4 says, I think the Clippers should try and go after a Zach LaVine or Siakam instead of Harden. What do you guys think? And what would a package for either look like? Our last episode, Justin Russo was on. He talked his Zach LaVine trade idea, and he was kind of all in with putting in draft capital and Terance Mann or Norm Powell with that. I do think between LaVine or Siakam, I would probably rather have, I think most people would rather have Pascal Siakam in that scenario. But
no,
I think
what?
I think it'd be another.
What are you talking about?
I would rather have Pascal.
We need a guard.
Are you most people?
I might be. So what are we trading for LaVine? Are you doing the Russo all-in trade?
Yeah. Picks, man. I'd like to keep one. Like I would probably still like to keep Norm for some scoring off the bench. Some durability questions with LaVine as of recent. And still not exact. What?
Pascal's a UFA also after this upcoming season. I take back what I said.
I just like
I didn't realize that was his contract.
So someone didn't read the rundown or do research.
Of course, I never do research. I make the rundown.
So Siakam is interesting to me because I mean, obviously, if you're the Raptors, you're going to want a lot. We have seen them ask for way too much and then let players walk for nothing. So maybe you could get a deal done there. With me, Pascal is a little bit of a different calculus. Like for Pascal, I want to send out one of our 2 forwards. We do not need 3 max to max-ish forwards on this team. It just doesn't make any sense from a roster building, perspective. I think that I think that you got to get a guard in there, and I like both of these moves. I'm going to be pro any move that's going to get this team younger. But I think
an all-in move for a younger guard.
Absolutely, absolutely,
every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything that's going to get this team younger and more athletic is definitely good. But with Siakam, just with how much money we're already paying to forwards, and the build of 2-1-3, to me, one of those guys has to go out for him to come in. Like that is kind of like that to me, it would be the crux of the trade. And I know that that's going to be a downgrade offensively from Paul George. I don't think they're going to swap Kawhi back. Don't know that he wants to go back. But to me, like it just doesn't make any sense to go all in on a move for yet another forward. Like I just from a roster building perspective, from what he's going to command with his next contract, like I just don't really see it. It just doesn't
make a more
seismic
shift.
It just doesn't really, but like in the wrong direction. Like
that's
it's
fair.
Yeah. It's just like swinging at a ball that is not going to leave the park, or like is not even in the strike zone. To be perfectly honest, like it's
Dodgers
like going
did a lot of that today.
It's like
okay, let's chill.
So that one for me is a no. But LaVine, I think, is interesting. I still don't know that he's the type of like guard necessarily that really like fits what this team is trying to do. I think that, I honestly feel like Terance is maybe like a little bit of a better fit for how the Clippers have operated so far, just in terms of like how he can adapt to more positions. He's a little bit more positionally adept than LaVine would be. Not comparing the two players, not by any stretch of the mind.
Right.
One is
in
like,
terms of what positions they can fill in.
One is like an
elite scorer,
near all NBA, like level talent, and then the other is Terance Mann. But I like it. Like I'm still kind of in on the Harden move. Still, I would still put that probably above either two, both realistically. But if anything was on the table, I do like the idea of any move that gets us younger. So I do like the Zach LaVine move.
I think I agree with you on the thing of I'd put Harden above these two trades too. Because I mean, as weird as it is, Adam, where are you at on this? What is the tag on your hat telling you to say?
About attainability, I think Harden does make the most sense because he's the one guy who seems to be hell-bent on getting out of his situation, and he wants to come to the Clippers. If you're just talking about talent, Zach LaVine, Pascal Siakam, they'd obviously be great additions, but it would take more to get them. You're going to have to give up a lot more than you would have for Harden. For Harden, there's still, I think, a realistic possibility you don't have to give up Terance Mann or Norman Powell, one or the other, or both of the first-round picks. You're giving up a little bit less. Now, even though Pascal Siakam is an unrestricted free agent after this season, I think a lot of teams, if the Raptors made it known that they were willing to move him now, would be in on him, and that would drive up the price alone.
Oh, maybe they wait. Yeah,
absolutely.
This is also a team, Masai Ujiri is a great GM, but they lost Fred VanVleet for nothing. They didn't make that move. They wanted Terance Mann apparently from the Clippers for him. Regardless of what you think of that, just the fact that they were willing to play out a season with a guy who was about to be an unrestricted free agent does kind of underscore who they are as an organization and how they want to run things. So I don't know if they're exactly ready yet to move on from Pascal Siakam or take whatever the best offer is now when they could still wait for the trade deadline. But he'd be a great fit because obviously there's a void at the 4 position with the Clippers right now. Hopefully,
a talent void. There's quite literally too many people at the 4 position.
Well, I think we're going to see some of this cleaned up by the end of the summer, where there's a clearer picture on who exactly is going to be the starting 4. But yeah, an upgrade in talent makes sense there. Pascal Siakam has played next to Kawhi Leonard, won a championship. I forget if it was game 1 or 2 where he went off in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors, but kind of had his moment. And he's been good since then. He has been a first or second option since Kawhi left there. So he's grown as a player. He's 29. Zach LaVine's 28. But LaVine has 4 more years left on his deal.
Right.
And that last year, I think, is for $48 million, and that's a player option.
Yeah.
But,
low for whatever the cap will be in realistic terms.
Yeah. Cap goes up almost 10% per year on average. So everybody that's talking about Jaylen Brown, it's like, you casuals, you didn't know he was getting that contract, really?
Remember when Mike Conley,
of course he was getting it. Yeah.
had the biggest contract
when he got 170 or whatever it was.
No, it was 150. And everyone was like, whoa!
The next guy who's due for a contract will usurp the last biggest contract ever as long as he's in a certain tier. That's what we saw with Jaylen Brown. But Zach LaVine, to me, has become underrated. His athleticism almost works against him in the media with the narrative about him just being a dunker. This guy, I believe, shot 38% in his 1 year at UCLA from 3. He was always a good shooter, and he's only gotten better at the professional level.
The guy's been in the league for how many years?
I'm making the point that it's not just that he got better as an outside shooter recently. He's been like that. It's just the spectacular dunks are what everybody looks at, the highlights.
That's true. And the Bulls haven't been exactly good, so there's not a huge national spotlight on them.
Yeah. And he's
Adam, I would love any team that you coach, because you would just have a ragtag group of kids who at one point shot well from the outside, and you'd just be trying to get it back.
The little giants.
Yeah, exactly. College basketball reference. I want to bring up a point about Pascal that I think is a really good call. Adam, you kind of talked about how the Raptors can wait to make that trade. One of the issues with the Harden trade is that we all want this to happen as soon as possible. We need as much time of this version of the Clippers together before basketball starts to really get used to playing with each other and all that stuff. I don't think if the Clippers don't make a Harden trade before the season starts and they make some big move at the deadline, I think all of us would take a before the season starts Harden trade to a maybe we'll make a huge move at the deadline trade. Because like that's just not enough time for this Clippers team to get to where it needs to be. I don't think.
I agree. And I honestly think with any move, especially with the Harden move, though, right? Because he is, there's so much uncertainty about, where he will be after next season, right?
Yeah.
I think that it behooves you to do it before you come into the season. And I think I've talked myself into the Harden thing a little bit, even more so. I'm still like, I still think you're in a weird position where you have to ride the line, right? Because I think that you absolutely need to make this trade so you can say, hey, we've tried every single possible combination.
They added top tier talent, like
around 2-1-3. We've
good of a guys we're gonna get.
Like we've done everything that we could do. We've we've added, we went at it from the extreme depth perspective. We tried to speed things up with, an older guard in John Wall that we could afford. We got a deal and a re-sign on Russ, when he was a buyout. But I think that this is the thing that's like, he is, the most traditional of point guards who still has a great outside shot. He also, plays at the type of tempo that the Clippers kind of like to play at.
Slow.
Just old man speed.
Old man speed. Yeah.
And so I think that like,
insane.
I think that on one hand, it's like, this makes the most sense. But on the other hand, I get why you're hesitant. Because of the draft capital that you have available, should that become a factor in an eventual Harden deal. And B, because let's say it doesn't work, right? Like, let's say which is
entirely possible.
The same thing happens that always happens. We don't get enough games out of Kawhi and Paul George. We lose someone late. I'm still not of the belief that this Clippers team with a new stadium open is in a position where they're ready to pivot away from this. I just don't really see it. So I think it's a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm on the side of let's get it done, but let's get it done for the right price. And so if that means waiting, I'm willing to wait. But the thing that I have reservations just about, like, as a fan, as a person, as a whatever podcaster, is I'm just tired of excuses. Like I don't want to hear if everybody like let's say everybody is healthy and there's a second round flame out again from the
You're
Clippers with all
Zoolander
this
right
talent.
now. You're tired of your you're tired of these excuses.
I just like don't want to hear like, oh, we didn't have enough time. It was this, it was that. Like I'm just kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
I agree with the point Chuck was making there originally of you got to put yourself
Nothing
in
I said, but
no. I like what you said about Harden
Love
being
what Chuck said right before that whole thing you were, dealing with.
if you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and rewind back like 3 to 5 minutes. And
I can't remember. Did you mention that Harden played at Arizona State? I can't remember if that part was.
Where's his position breakdown from ASU, dude? Like, are you even like what?
Beardless. That was his position. But the point is,
basketball.
I agree with what Will's saying too, in that you don't want to hear any excuses of this season not having enough time because time is of the essence. They're running out of time right now. So if there was ever a moment where you push things all in and try to get a team together in training camp with James Harden, it'd be now, not waiting till the trade deadline and then saying, oh, if we just had more time with these guys later on, it can work out. We'll kick the can down the road and say next season's going to be different because we thought last season was going to be different. We thought last season they were going to get off to a better start. That we'll get into more of this a little bit later, but the regular season will be taken more seriously. And they didn't. And it was the same situation where there were a lot of moving targets. They were playing whack-a-mole out there with the different problems they were trying to fix all the time. The roster that came in, the guard situation, they need to come in, and signing Russ and signing Mason Plumlee gives you some continuity right off the bat that wasn't there, obviously, till later last season. And that's great. But if you're going to do the James Harden experiment with the 2-1-3 era, I think it behooves you to make the move now and not wait too long. And something else I would say to people who aren't interested in James Harden is I feel like there's this disconnect where some fans are coming from the perspective of we're okay and this is a championship level team right now and we don't want to disrupt that. It's not as if, bringing in James Harden is a risk to taking away a contender because you brought in James Harden. At this point, with the way the roster is, I feel like there has to be some moves made here and there. So I'm with Justin Russo. I asked him this last week. Does Harden ultimately make them closer or get them closer to a championship? If the answer is yes from you, then I think you have to make the move.
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think he does bring them closer to winning a championship. And I still think one of the best things that he can bring is giving them an opportunity to bring Russ off the bench. If James Harden is starting, there's a more likely chance that Russ is running the second unit, where I think a lot of people would say he's better suited. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. A lot of good reasons.
We'll see about that.
We'll see.
We got a couple questions. We got a couple questions to get to. We're going to talk about more James Harden stuff in a sec. This one I liked from Hovster9. It's something we haven't talked about all offseason, which does make sense. They ask, what is the expectation for Zubac this year? Do we need to see him take the step offensively? Are you good with where he's at? Disregard the favorable contract for a minute, which I like that end piece. Where are we at on Zoo? If we get Harden, is it just more of the same? He's going to be even less of a factor if we get a starting lineup of Harden, Russ, Kawhi, PG, Zoo. I mean, Zoo's literally fifth on the pecking order by quite a bit in that offensive option. I think we just want to see maybe a better percentages. He's not going to be asked to do very much more. So I'm not really sure what his ceiling is right now. I do know that people will complain whatever he ends up doing.
I have high expectations for Ivica Zubac. I always have, but especially coming into this season off of the playoff, I think overall poor performance from him against the Phoenix Suns, where all of us pretty much unanimously were thinking, oh, he can get the better of DeAndre Ayton. May not be totally lopsided, but he played very well against him in the 2021 playoffs. And that didn't happen. Mason Plumlee outplayed him, especially obviously in that game 5 where Zubac didn't play much at all in the second half and Big Plum took over. But Zubac is turning 26 now. And at some point, you just want to see more consistency from players as they age, where the glimpses and the flashes of potential turn into consistency. And what he showed us the first couple of weeks of the season last year when the Clippers were a top 5 defense and he was basically holding it down as the anchor because not a lot of guys were playing that great, but Ivica Zubac was making up for their mistakes on that end. I would like to see more of that throughout the entire regular season. They were still so much better with him on the floor defensively. They went from a 114.9 defensive rating with him on the floor to basically being what would be the worst defense in the league without him on the floor at a 121.2 defensive rating. San Antonio had the bottom defense last year at 119. So 121 is pretty damn bad without him. But he still had his worst individual defensive rating for his career after that hot start. Now, he was banged up. He obviously missed games. I do think, though, there's more untapped potential to Ivica Zubac in terms of just consistency. And I want to see it this season. He's 26 now. He's not 21 anymore. He's not 22. He's not just a guy who we think has this ceiling that we'll see down the road. It's time for it to come to fruition because he can really actually help this team by becoming a more consistent player, a more reliable player. And some of it's still on them, like getting him involved and keeping him involved at times. Feed Zoo, find him. But I'm hoping just the fact that Plumlee's there to start off the season, that saves his legs to a degree. Will, you're back.
He's back. Yeah, you've been just leaving this episode. If you haven't been watching on YouTube, Will has entered and exited in some form or another at least 2 times so far.
Just 2 times. Well, the first one, I had to turn off the AC.
Turn it off.
It's hot as hell, but like the noise it's loud. I have a
well, we couldn't hear it.
Aggressive air conditioner.
If you want to turn it back on, go ahead. You might get reviews about it.
Might be on the audio. You know, I'm always caring about the audio.
Of course, you're an audiophile.
Yeah, I agree with Adam.
Wait, where did Zoo go to college?
So one thing I like, Adam, I totally agree on the consistency part. We love the highs of Zoo, but there needs to be some consistency late in the season and things like that. I'm excited. You mentioned kind of like Russ being with the second unit. Ty Lue loves offense. Zubac is going to be the starting center for the Clippers. I'm really interested to see what Mason Plumlee's minutes per game is with one part of the big 2-1-3. Because I think that Zoo on the bench really helps the defense a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, Mason Plumlee does not totally help the bench on defense, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Zoo with the second unit time and things like that. Not saying that like Mason Plumlee will play more minutes than Zoo with the first unit, but it'll be a pretty healthy dose, I think. Because last year we had Moses Brown, who was not going to see any time with the 2-1-3 unit.
There was that comment from Plumlee that was kind of interesting for the team Plumlee, big Plum truthers out there that think he should be starting over Zubac.
He talked about truthers
competing in I don't know if he was talking about training camp or preseason, but like it wasn't a foregone conclusion. It felt like in his mind. I'm totally paraphrasing here and being vague.
They should play 1-on-1. Whoever wins gets the spot.
Gets the start.
That's how the game's played. So it's just do it like that Hakeem and Shaq 1-on-1 game we never got from Taco Bell in '95.
Do it before opening night. That's how this team kind of operates at this point. Let's see. Before the national anthem, they play 1-on-1.
They do it at warm-ups. Yeah. They do it at warm-ups opening night. That's who the starting center is.
They're playing Harse. It's HARSE instead of HORSE.
I'd like that edge though from Plumlee. And that
he's a great vet.
I think there's a friendship there or a good relationship and everything, but it's still a competition. You're still competing for a spot and you still want to dangle that carrot a little bit to always keep guys as motivated as possible. Competition's a good thing, even within a team.
I think the big thing for me with Zoo, like even it's hard to disregard the contract just because of where the Clippers are at in terms of the cap.
He makes less than Marvin Bagley, for those of you wondering.
If not Zoo, then who? Is kind of like seriously, like looking at the looking at the market out there.
Right.
Maybe
we're gonna trade for a center.
Maybe we pull the old switcheroo. Harden's off the table. We end up with Embiid. ship Zoo on out of here. But I don't really see that as happening. I'm not worried about him offensively. I think that what he provides on the other end of the floor is more than enough. But just, once again, like looking at the field of what's available out there and what the Clippers have to spend, or like are you willing to give up assets for another center? Like, what is the upgrade level from Zubac? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that there aren't better centers out there, but I'm saying,
what are we getting?
Yeah, like, what are you realistically willing to give up to shore up that position? Like, if the mythical center existed out there that was better than Zoo on offense, and somehow
he can stop Jokic, he can
stop
and
like
Giannis,
a Jokic stopper, like sure, let's go for it. I don't know that guy.
All right, last question before the break. This is from Clippers Meme King and the person who made our wonderful background here on Clips and Dip. If you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast.
Is that Eric?
That is there. That's all dang all Eric. LOL WTF Eric asks, given Chuck Mockler's huge affinity for Podcast P, which player on the team would you want to see a podcast from, and who would their random co-host and gimmick be? His example was Underground Uninterrupted with Lou Williams live from Magic City featuring Ralph Lawler. Well, that's the best one that you could possibly make.
Yeah.
So I think I would go with, there's a famous photo that may or may not be Kawhi Leonard. It was a video of Kawhi Leonard. I would do a similar thing, but with Kawhi and Zubac live from Magic City. Called, I guess we would call it Zoo in the Claw is what we would call it. And they would just be them kind of a daily update on what was happening in Magic City that particular night.
I like the idea of Kawhi being the guy, because while he doesn't talk much at all, we hang on to every word he does say because of that. He's laconic. There's weight to his words. But I want to see him paired up with the guy who brings a lot out of him that we know has a reputation for doing so in Serge Ibaka. Kawhi on his cooking show. Serge right now, free agent. I'm hoping. I mean,
he's not going to come back, man.
No, the co-host doesn't have to be an active player. Just the main guy, right? The main guy's Kawhi, co-host Serge Ibaka, because Kawhi also had the "What it do, baby?" while in the car with Serge. So I think that tandem would be a good podcast.
Will, what are you going with?
I guess I have two. One would be Russell Westbrook with either Ralph Lauren or Rick Owens, and it would be called
Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
I would definitely listen to that.
Or Rick Owens. Like, I'm trying to think of the dichotomy of Russell Westbrook, and to me, it's an old white fashion designer.
Yeah, I love that.
The podcast would be called Street Clothes, even though Russ does play a lot. He's not generally referred to as Street Clothes. Yeah. But they could call out bums in the NBA. They could do all sorts of stuff.
That's a good idea.
So I like that one. And then the other one would be Terance Mann and multimedia artist Jeff Koons. And it would be called
Hell yeah.
It would be called Modern Art, but with an F in like a little parentheses.
So they're critiquing modern art?
Yeah, well, Terance has terrible taste in art, and Jeff Koons, one of the most divisive artists. I feel like that'd be a really funny pairing.
Those are great. Those are great options. Adam looked offended.
I don't want it to be about basketball, I guess is also what I'm saying. Just don't make a podcast. Don't make another NBA podcast.
I want Paul George's podcast to be about fishing. I would listen to that
Are you kidding me? I would listen to that podcast.
You guys still detractors on his podcast.
I wouldn't call me a detractor. Well. I'm an active suppressor.
Fine.
Give me my credit. All right, coming up, we're going to be talking. We're doing kind of a throwback to the What You Say Wednesday poll for the old Locked On Clippers fans out there. We got a couple questions about Westbrook and Harden, and then we're going to get into Ty Lue on All the Smoke podcast, which is hosted by former NBA players, which is a great idea. But first, there's ads coming up, so if those have been too loud for you, go ahead and turn it down. But after that, we're talking James Harden trade options coming up in 3, 2, 1. All right, we are back on Clips and Dip, Season 2, Episode 5. Thank you for listening to us. Thanks for watching us, which is something I never thought I would say in my life. We are over at youtube.com/Clippers podcast. You can see Adam's he's very proud of his new hat. He's now has every tag on
When you
it.
guys see it was $29.99.
Did you keep the shipping tags on that? Like, there's
Got
more tags
everything
on that
here.
hat than I've ever seen. So we asked Clipper Nation over on Twitter at Clippers Pod.
I like it
what
a lot
is-
more than the other one you got.
Wait, which one?
The gray one?
The gray one.
People are
Damn.
hating on the gray one.
I don't
only
like
got
the gray one. I don't get it.
People were hating on it.
What does it have to do with the Clippers?
What do you mean? It's the Clippers logo.
It's boring.
It sucks.
We asked Clipper Nation over on Twitter. So during the season, Adam had a fun time, but I think Adam is seeing what off season Will and Chuck can be like sometimes. Adam no doubt is going to read the breakdown for the first time halfway through this episode. So we asked Clipper Nation on Twitter, what is your biggest holdup with the James Harden trade? The options were including Terance or Norm, including first round picks, including both Terance or Norm and first round picks, and then nothing, send whatever. The runaway winner in this was including Terance or Norm, and it was not Norm. Every single person who commented, who said they voted for this option, said they would miss Terance a lot more. So it doesn't seem like people have an issue with trading Norm Powell. Including both Terance or Norm and a first round pick was second place with 28%. Nothing, send whatever, was third place with 20%. And no one cares about first round picks because 8% of people took that option. Adam, you just had to go do a rage walk and put on an uninspiring hat design wise. What would you have voted for on this option?
My camera didn't pick up me in my underwear.
No, I don't know. Dude, all your camera's picking up is cinder blocks and Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I got to get this cleaned up over here.
Okay, someone on YouTube just said trade for Ben Simmons, and I'm about to text Joseph Fry Award and see if that's his burner, because that's a Joseph Fry Award want right there.
The name is Ghost. I could see that as a burner name.
Adam, where would you vote for on this? What's your bugaboo with trading for James Harden?
Well, I think people just assume it's baked in that Norman Powell would have to be included, and Terance Mann is the guy that would be too far or too much to give up from the Clippers side. And he's a homegrown player here. He's beloved. His game 6, 39 points, is an all-timer against the Utah Jazz to get him to the Western Conference Finals. We love Terance Mann, and he's also on the much cheaper deal. So if it's not Norman Powell, then who's being included to match the contracts of James Harden? Who's everybody?
It was 39 points, by the way.
I thought I said 39.
You said 36.
Go back to college stats, buddy.
I'm going to pull up a Scantron here and slap Will in the face. But I can understand the trepidation and the reluctance to want to include Terance Mann. So it makes sense to me how the polling went. Norman Powell is more of a mercenary type you bring in to get over the top to get your first championship. But they're both obviously very valuable for this team. And if Philly can pull off the trade and bring in Norman Powell, that's not nothing. I know Daryl Morey's talking about, well, if we're not getting another star player in return, then we have to get a bunch of high draft picks and turn those into.
You're not getting Paul George. Everyone I keep seeing Philly fans on Twitter be like, you just swap PG for James Harden. It's like the Clippers aren't going to do that.
It's posturing. It's the beginning of negotiations. It makes sense that they would be that staunchly against it right now, so they up the offer from the opposition. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't want to see Mann leave either. I don't want to see anyone leave really, but you have to give to get. And we all kind of say James Harden can make this team better and gets them closer to a championship.
You don't want to see anyone leave?
No, I love them all. Who do you want to see leave?
Marcus Morris.
Jeez, what an a-hole.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Who do I want to see leave? Will, where are you at on this? Are you in the let's not trade anybody? We're a great team and we rule.
Yeah, can't we just absorb him into space?
Yeah.
Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, we trade cash for cash or more cash or whatever.
I think since we already have Westbrook, completely different player, obviously, than Norm Powell, but I think if we're bringing in yet another guard, I feel like Norm is like he's the one thing of value that we really include in that trade.
Right.
And then, I mean, the thing is just the difficulty of it being sort of a 1-year situation, right? So I think like Norm, filler, because they have to take some salary off of our hands.
Or they throw PJ Tucker in and some horrible, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like where I'm at is like the Clippers pick the first pick that they can trade out is 2028, right?
I think so. It might be 2027.
Either
way,
long time from now, we still don't even know the future of what, like Paul George and Kawhi's situation is going to be with this team.
Sure.
I would say my best offer. This is my best offer, and it's Norm, a swap, and filler.
That seems like a good offer.
Norm, a swap, and filler. And if the hang up is that it can't be a swap, it has to be a first.
You say goodbye.
I don't
Daryl.
I don't know that I love giving up. I still don't know that I love giving up a first. Not that the Clippers have drafted, spectacularally well, but it's just it's just one of
it
those.
Hurts a little more. It's I understand what you're saying.
It's just
it's annoying.
If we get over that double apron, then things get tighter with what we can trade. I'm not even thinking about like the draft prospect so much as like that's ammunition that you have if you have to do some sort of other deal.
Right. All right. So we got a couple of questions about this. Trent Maddox, one of Adam's favorite people on Twitter, said
Clippers 9450.
Said, in regards to pairing Westbrook and Harden, are we just going to ignore the part where Russ is back and Ty is still the coach? How is this going to work? So, to Adam, what you were talking about, you would assume, it seems like, that when Harden joins the team, Russ would go to the bench.
I do not think that's a given. I would like to see that.
Okay, totally agree. I would like to see that too. In your heart of hearts, does it seem like that would be the case, or does it seem like we're starting all of those guys, and then potentially, because someone else asked if we should move Kawhi, and Michael Hanich asked, like, if we trade for Harden and we bring everybody on and we're starting those 5, move Kawhi and PG down like a lot of people have wanted.
So you're saying start Westbrook and Russ?
So before you disappear.
Or sorry,
yes.
Russ. Sorry, you're saying start Harden and Russ?
So we were just saying,
hate it.
Before you left, does that seem?
I had my headphones on.
Hey, we couldn't see. We don't know what you're doing in there. Does it seem like Ty would actually bench Russ, or are we getting 2-1-3 Russ, Harden, and Zoo? Because that's two different things. I think we're probably closer to getting 2-1-3 plus Russ and Harden.
When has it worked for the Clippers with 2 starting guards when one is a non-shooter?
I'm not saying that it's worked before. I'm saying this is what we'll probably see from Ty Lue. I agree it hasn't worked. You're not going to get me to argue that it has.
Even if, let's say, those 4 guys started, 2 of them are going to the bench pretty early in the first quarter to get them ready to come back at the end of the first quarter.
Kawhi's going to play his whole one.
And one of Russ or James Harden is definitely included there. But I just think there's a better chance of Russell Westbrook coming off the bench if you have the excuse of James Harden is our starting point guard now.
Totally agree with that. Yeah.
And that is more meaningful than almost not than what James Harden brings, because what he brings is special too. But that's another way he can make the team better. I think Russ with the second unit could be really fun, could be exciting, and could be the best position for him to thrive at this point in his career, maybe always in his career, because I don't know if you can have him even at his best as the number 1 option on a championship team, because his up and down erratic style at times. But I do think it works. You just have to know when to hold him and when to fold him with Russell Westbrook. You got to know how to use him. And I thought at times the Clippers were very good with him, obviously, last season, and Coach Lue not playing him in a few fourth quarters and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'd love to see a starting lineup where maybe it is Kawhi and Paul George moved up a position. We've talked about this before, but the question comes down to, is it more physical for Kawhi to have to play against bigger bodies out there at the 4 position, or is it more physical for him to have to run around the perimeter more if he's playing the 2 or the 3? And I'm sure there's data on this and they can figure that out. I don't know.
They can figure it out.
Most players shift down a position. Like if you play the 3, like it's like the natural progression is you shift down a position.
Yeah, sure.
Jordan did it. Kobe did it at the very end. A lot of guys have done this, and Kawhi is obviously strong enough to do it. It's just about wear and tear and putting the least amount of strain on his body, obviously.
Will, where are you? If because someone brought in a good point on YouTube, Starman said, if we get Harden, maybe Russ comes off the bench, but do they all close together? I actually think I might weirdly believe in Ty Lue on this one. He's going to ride the hot hand. But do you think if we're starting Harden, Russ, PG, Kawhi, Zoo, it's a bit of more on the unserious train than you'd like to be?
Yeah. I don't really know that unit should be closing games either. Like that's not that good defensively. It's like, I'm not really, I just don't really see those
for
two
the expectations.
Yeah,
for what this team's supposed to be.
I don't really see those two working together for long stints. Like I think that it can work in periods in time, and like maybe they can play with,
I like that.
With tempos, with that's how they end up choosing like who's bringing the ball up or whatever. I just don't like the fit. Like we've tried multiple iterations of the fast non-shooting guard. It just doesn't really work. And like, while Russ, I do like the effort defensively. Like, there's just no denying. Like, that's just not a great defensive unit to close out games from a team that already wasn't stellar outside of the first 11 games or whatever in that department.
I do want to bring this up regarding Russ and Harden on the court together. When they played together in Houston, there was about a 2-month stretch. The second half of that season where Russ played. It was ASU. It was UCLA. It was a fantastic triple overtime game.
This was the
Ben Howland
NCAA
would play
All-Star game.
Russ in the fourth quarter to guard James Harden. But Russell Westbrook put up some of his best numbers, some of his best play in about a 2-month stretch with the Houston Rockets. When they went to that 5-out with him next to James Harden, he was averaging about 33 on 53% shooting for 2 months, then had the quad injury, took that with him into the bubble, wasn't the same, didn't play the full series against the OKC Thunder. Eventually they lost to the Lakers in the second round. But for everyone saying they can't play together, I like what Will said. In stints, it could work at times.
Yeah,
you just have to know when that time is.
Well, and the big thing about like the difference between that and this is like those were the anchors of that team, right? Like either one of these players, like it, if Harden comes in, if Russ ends up being the starting point guard, yes, they will be very important players. But ideally, given what we've traded, given what we've been trying to build around for 4 years, they wouldn't be the anchors. And so I think trying to cater a backcourt around those two where you have like Kawhi and Paul George into more like stretching the floor kind of positions. Like I understand that it could work. And like, there's definitely an argument for it to be used or employed in certain stints, but as an overall plan, I don't really love that as a focal point or a focus. The option should be getting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the best spots for them to be successful while minimizing the amount of time they have to initiate stuff on their own and keep that wear and tear down low so they can keep up two-way play.
So Paul George said on the Tyrese Halliburton episode of his podcast that he, at this point in his career, likes to be more a facilitator versus dominating with his scoring. Do we think that adding Harden would hopefully maybe get him to lean more on the scoring side of things? Because if we add James Harden,
a way better passer.
We do not need Paul George to do jack shit with distributing the ball in any kind of I'm the starting point guard sense.
And George was more aggressive with his offense once Russell Westbrook came in last season. To his credit, he didn't have to play off the ball more. It sure seemed to work. The numbers and percentages show it. And obviously he had his best season, you can say, third in MVP next to Russell Westbrook. So there's something to that. And James Harden's definitely the more focused passer at this point. Like he's more comfortable
Yes.
in that role, and is just, I mean, he can pick and roll with the best of them all time in the NBA. I would love to see what he and
I mean,
did
him
he
and
get
Zoo, like him
did
and
he
Zoo, just
sure
as a random option off of PG and Kawhi is like a pretty fucking sick pick and roll.
did he ever play in his rookie season with Kenyon Martin Jr., or was he already gone the year before? I'm wondering, James Harden.
Let me
'Cause
look, but I'd
that
have
would
to
be
see
an
if he's already
interesting pick and
gone.
roll. But yeah, James Harden is so elite as just more of a prototypical floor general out there. Like
Yeah.
he's always had it, but people saw, oh, he's scoring 35 a game. Like that's not who he is. Well, if you look, he's also getting 8 assists per game too. Now he's just doing much more of that, as he can't blow by guys as much as he used to with that dribble drive move. It was either a 3-pointer, step back, or just going right past guys or throwing a lob to Capella or something.
Yeah, that's a good call. We're gonna see what happens. Hopefully we get some news at some point about this. Again, we all want it to happen before training camp, so let's just pray that it happens at some point before then. Coming up,
But are we all in agreement that, like, for this season,
yes,
this is the best move for the Clippers?
Do
Like,
it.
This is the best.
Yeah,
This is probably the best, like, arrow in your quiver or whatever. Like, I don't see a realistic, like, trade target. I'm not really seeing another realistic option out there that is both fit wise good, still high. I mean, still high potential for failure. Don't get me wrong, but like anything around this duo has a high potential for failure.
sure, that's fair. Also, to Adam's point, James Harden, I believe, was there for 8 games
before
KJ
he
Martin's
got
rookie year.
Yeah,
So, not a lot
before he got moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah, but this is the year, Will. Like this, but it's before some super crazy cap stuff happens. Let's make it happen.
And I can't emphasize enough for the people who are like, no, he'll ruin things. Ruin what? Like they haven't
It already sucks.
It doesn't suck, but do you think, as currently constructed, that this team has, a great chance of winning the championship? Sure, you can say if they're healthy, but does James Harden not help during a regular season when one of your stars is out? Yeah. We saw how Russ can help in that area with the game he had against Memphis. James Harden can do some of that stuff too.
Absolutely can. And again, we just want some real news about it coming up. Coming up after this break, we're going to be talking a couple clips that popped up of Ty Lue on All the Smoke podcast. If the ads have been loud for you, go ahead and turn it down. We got All the Smoke talk coming up after this in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back into Clips and Dip, your friendly neighborhood Clippers podcast. Look, we've talked about James Harden. We took some questions. We are live right now on YouTube and on Twitter, so we will still field some questions. If you're hanging out with us, go ahead and shoot those over. But right now, we're going to talk a little bit about an appearance by head coach Tyronn Lue on All the Smoke. And Charles, you have some clips.
So, yeah, apparently...
Play the clip.
Clips
I'm not going
to
play the clip.
We have to play clips, guys. It's in our name.
He apparently has told.
Go and roll the clip.
Click play. Click the space bar. That should just play the clip that's rolled up. Ty Lue has apparently told Kawhi and PG this summer that it's time to take the regular season more seriously. Which, hey, great. But the issue, I'm definitely not rolling the clip for those of you watching on YouTube. The issue with that is how can they do that if they're hurt? And this is not a knock on them. This is just kind of like, if you're hurt and you really can't push it all the way and you got to get healthy during the regular season, that's what you have to do, which leans into, like you guys just talked about, having a guy like James Harden who can be that top tier talent when someone goes down and things like that. Like, I mean, we're starting this season with like an actual backup center that will also help us take the regular season more seriously. But like, it's really just ultimately how much these two guys can play together. Like, it's not like I don't think they take it incredibly unserious now, but like, I just don't know how much more we can get. If they start the season healthy, let's go. But we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, I think it's really tough because, like Charles pointed out, I mean, if you're coming back from an injury during the season, I mean, you're just not going to be at 100%. I think it gets difficult to trust your body. I do think that we see and have seen historically with this team, like some less than inspiring performances, even when healthy. And maybe some of that does still come down to not being like 100%, but still able to play. But I mean, there's no way around it, right? Like,
I'm sorry, guys.
Are we getting a clip?
I can play it here if you want. I had it.
It doesn't sound very good.
Hold on.
Correct.
Kawhi and PG this summer, like we do got to approach the regular season in a different way. Like we got to be, approach the regular season. Like let's be serious about it. Let's not wait to the playoffs because it matters. Like, who you get matched up with, have a home court advantage, not fight the last 10 games of the season, so we won't be in the play-in. Yeah. So now you can get rest. Now you can get yourself together and be ready for the playoffs. And so they both understood that as well. And one thing I told
Kawhi and PG. Sorry, not rolling the clip.
Great clip.
I just want to make sure nothing was taken out of context, guys. That was important to me.
I didn't take anything out of context. I
don't know,
exactly
Charles.
what he said.
I don't know.
They also mentioned at one point.
The hat.
They mentioned, man, I can't even look at that damn hat. At one point they mentioned that it's like, oh, it was the medical staff. So it's like, sure, like I guess we can blame that. Oh my God, someone in the comments is saying 4-guard lineup with Morris at the center. Never again. He wants the Clippers to be at full strength, which I think makes sense. I think
that's all he's ever wanted.
Literally, I think that's very true. Adam, go ahead. You were going to say something in that hat.
No, as you were getting to, ultimately, it's can you take the regular season serious when you know your two superstars? It's pretty much built in. They might miss 30% of the regular season, and to that, I would say yes, because up until last year, I felt like they did. Even the season before, without Kawhi all year long, and Paul George missed a ton of games too, I still felt like they were trying to win. They were going out there. We didn't see a game like against the Cavaliers in Cleveland this year, where they played pretty much nobody. And there's been 4 years of the 2-1-3 era, and last season was the first time I felt like, okay, we're not being serious enough with the regular season. They're disrespecting it too much. And Lawrence Frank said as much afterwards. And now Coach Lue is echoing that too. So I think you can have that mindset regardless of who is available and who is out there. You can still play to win within reason. I think every team at this point in the NBA tries to cut corners and balance things enough where they're not putting the playoffs in jeopardy, while also not putting their players in jeopardy from being too tired or too gassed by the time they get there. Everybody's trying to strike that balance. And they paid for it because Joel Embiid wore down so much trying to go for the MVP, I'd say. Like, I think every team, it's not just unique to the Clippers. What is, though, is just the lack of availability from their two guys so much more than pretty much everybody else when you're talking about two of them being this injury prone.
So, I mean, like, whatever. Health is what it is. I don't know how to say, like, stay healthy or play more games. I mean, I can say it, but, like, I don't have an answer for you. I don't have a good answer. I think, like, the most discouraging or disheartening thing about last season was it felt like the supporting cast kind of at a certain point hung their heads and were like, well, I guess we're just doing this again.
They're exhausted, probably.
And like, I understand that too. But it definitely was, it felt different. It looked different on court. The body language was certainly different from players. So I get addressing this to Kawhi and Paul George because they are ultimately your leaders. And even if they're not the type of vocal leaders or whatever, that they can still set that example. And I hope to see them set that example even in games that they're not playing, because I think, like, look, I don't like to over analyze this stuff because at the end of the day, I don't know how much it matters. But like, we saw some games last season, Kawhi and Paul George on the bench look pretty disengaged. And I'm not asking them to like bring up the clipboard or anything like that. But like, if you can,
I don't want Paul George to be calling plays.
If you can't be on the floor, I do think there's something to be said at doing your best to like at least elevate the vibe of the people there on the floor.
You want them doing like,
yeah,
like little.
I mean, he was a t-shirt cannon, Paul George, at times. He was throwing those shirts into the crowd.
Someone had to join Rocco, make him feel not as embarrassed for being only allowed to throw T-shirts.
I also think when it comes to the regular season and every team, having one eye on the playoffs and one eye on the present in the regular season at the same time, it makes things tricky. But we did just last season see a team that was the 8th seed go to the finals in the East and a 7th seed in the West go to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think with the state of the NBA that we're that far away from a team that is below a top 3 seed winning the championship for the first time since the 95 Rockets. Like, I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think you have to necessarily be a top 3 seed. I think it's going to happen soon.
I think soon, maybe, but definitely not next year. And that's the Clippers window. So for me, it's like, let's make that happen. Anything else you want to bring up? Anything else? Just Clippers wise, we got to get off our chests. Anything, Adam? New hat, GoFundMe for that or anything like that?
Ghost has a question for Charles, I feel like.
Are the open positions for the Clippers every season? They have performance analysis, sports science associate, and strength and conditioning associate jobs available. Wonderful question, Ghost. The answer to this question is yes. If you go to the Clippers LinkedIn, they got a whole mess of positions available. They're always looking for people, be that for better or for worse. I will say, compared to other professional sports teams, I seem to have fewer job openings posted on LinkedIn. I don't know if that's actually indicative of how many are actually open, but they're always looking for people. And
Could be looking for a new pre-op and post guy. You never know.
Hey, they might. I think they're a little shaky on radio right now. Adam's going to need us to do more than 3 a week if they put his job up there. But yeah, they're hiring for every single position. They've had marketing stuff on there for a while. I won't say what I really want to say because I'll wait to see what the slogan for the Clippers is this year and if it can beat "Give No Quarter" and the passion that brought out of the fans when that was revealed.
What do you guys want? What do you guys want the slogan to be this year?
Give us a break.
I love it.
We're doing our damn best. I don't know. You know what I want it to be? I want it to be the GTA button combination on PS2 for infinite health. That's what I want the Clippers slogan to be.
I like it.
Adam?
All in.
Dude, I will.
What?
They have the t-shirts made up. They're good to go, dude. They can release that shit tomorrow. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. We thank everyone. Someone said break a leg on the YouTube channel. All right. The YouTube channel.
I want it to be Shiver Me Timbers. It means nothing, but it'd be so fun to yell.
That's actually true. So you want the rebrand to happen before the new stadium. They're going full Pirates.
Yeah.
They're going, actually, I'm with that. Dude, a pirate rebrand, if you really want to make a mark as a team owner, rebrand your team to full-on pirate theme. Like the Buccaneers, but the West Coast version.
Or the Pirates in baseball.
The Mutineers?
That's different. They're not actually pirate-themed, though. They don't have like a pirate. They have an old pirate
Mutineers
logo.
would be dope.
The Mutineers?
Yeah.
So we're mutinying?
Yeah.
So people are saying, fuck this and leaving?
Yeah. No, we're just overthrowing the government.
All right.
The defectors.
Yeah, the defectors. All right, Shiver Me Timbers. I'm gonna vote for that if they put that on a list.
Can you imagine yelling that? That'd be fun as hell.
We just released this player, or did he walk the plane?
Or did he walk the plane? Of course, yeah. Yeah, they make player releases fun. It's like a really dystopian team to play for.
The Thunderdome.
Right, we're getting off the rails. We are going to be back next week, hopefully with a guest. Hopefully something more will happen with the Clippers and James Harden. Who knows? Will, if these wonderful people were going to review us or perhaps subscribe, where could they possibly do that?
Great question. Great question. You
can God,
new logo.
We got to get more efficient with the syllables on this.
Yeah,
you can review us over on Apple Podcasts, also on Spotify. Would love to see some more reviews over there on Spotify. Haven't seen enough lately, but whatever, we'll absolutely read your review on the air. You can listen to us on either one of those wonderful platforms. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to us there. We're also over at YouTube. That's at Clippers Podcast. Go ahead, check this out. You can see some fun names that we do in the thing. Sometimes we do a good job with it. Sometimes I'm lazy. And also follow us over on Clippers Pod. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody on the stream.
We appreciate Adam. Anything you want to send these wonderful folks off in the middle of their week to?
Yeah, we got one more question.
Adam's
here.
gonna give away this hat to anyone who wants it.
It's
Would you want this hat? It's yours.
Never worn, brand new. Jay says Marcus Morris is okay. Never mind. Yeah, we can get out.
We're gonna get out of here. We'll be back next week. As always, let's go Clips.